Life is a journey filled with relationships, some that build you up and others that only take from you. But here's a hard truth we all need to learn. Not everyone who shows up in your life is there for the right reasons. And perhaps more painfully, not everyone who comes to you in times of need is truly invested in you. There are people who only value you when it benefits them. Those who turn a blind eye when you're thriving, and suddenly they reappear when they need something. It's a pattern that leaves us feeling used, drained, and unappreciated. But here's the truth. You deserve better. Understand this. Your worth is not contingent upon your availability to others. You are not a backup plan, a safety net, or a resource for someone else's convenience. You are a unique individual with dreams, passions, and value that should never be sidelined. Let me tell you this, if they ignore you when you need support or when you're at your best, don't let them back in when they're only interested in what you can do for them. True relationships, true connections are built on mutual respect, trust, and understanding. People who genuinely care about you don't only show up when they need something, they're there through the highs and lows. So stay away from those who only see you as a tool for their own convenience. You are not someone's lifeline to be used and discarded. You are a force to be reckoned with, a source of strength, not to be taken for granted, and anyone who doesn't recognize that doesn't deserve a place in your life. Instead, invest your time and energy in those who lift you up, who celebrate your successes, and who stay by your side even when things aren't going perfectly. These are the people who understand the value of true connection and who recognize your worth, not just when they need something, but all the time. Remember this, you are worthy of respect, love, and support every day, not just when someone else needs you. Your value is constant, and so should the respect that you receive. Keep your circle strong, filled with those who show up for you in all seasons of life, not just when the weather is fair. Stay away from those who see you as an option and choose to be surrounded by people who treat you as a priority. You deserve that. And don't settle for less. Your self-worth is one of the most important aspects of who you are. It is the foundation upon which everything else in your life is built. When you know your value, you walk through life with a sense of confidence, resilience, and clarity. It is essential to understand that your worth is not dependent on your availability to others. Unfortunately, there are many people who will try to convince you otherwise. They may want you to believe that your only purpose is to serve their needs, but this could not be further from the truth. You are more than just a tool for someone else's convenience or a safety net for when they fall. Your life, your time, and your energy are valuable. Every moment you spend on this earth is an opportunity for growth, learning, and fulfillment. And while it's important to support those we love and care about, it is equally crucial to remember that you are not defined by your usefulness to others. If someone only values you when they need something from you, it's time to step back and reassess the nature of that relationship. Think about the times when you've given your all to someone. Perhaps you've been there for them when they are going through difficult times, offering emotional support or lending a helping hand. You might have made sacrifices or invested time and energy without expecting anything in return. That's what a healthy, balanced relationship looks like. It's mutual, and it goes both ways. But what happens when you're the one who needs support? What happens when you're the one going through a rough patch? And those very same people who you helped in the past are nowhere to be found. It's a painful experience to realize that the connection you thought was real is actually one-sided. This realization can be difficult to accept, but it's a vital lesson to learn. Your value is not conditional. It doesn't fluctuate based on how much you can do for someone else or how available you are in their times of need. You are inherently valuable as a person, not because of your actions or sacrifices for others. Your worth is constant, no matter who comes into your life or who exits it. When you grasp this concept, you begin to live with a sense of purpose that isn't tied to external validation or the opinions of others. If you constantly make yourself available to people who only acknowledge your presence when it's convenient for them, you begin to lose sight of your true worth. This can cause you to feel drained, disrespected, and ultimately unappreciated. You might begin to believe that you're only valuable when you're useful, which is an incredibly limiting mindset. But this kind of thinking will hold you back from living a life filled with genuine connection. The truth is, you are worthy of love, respect, and kindness in every circumstance, whether you're giving or receiving. The hardest part of this realization is that it forces you to confront the fact that not everyone in your life has your best interests at heart. There are people who will show up only when it benefits them, and they may not be aware, worse, they may not care that their actions are causing you harm. It's easy to become frustrated or even angry at these people. But the real power comes from choosing not to let them control your sense of self-worth. The more you allow yourself to be defined by others' treatment of you, the more you'll find yourself in a cycle of disappointment and frustration. Remember, the people who truly care about you don't just show up when they need something. They're there for you through the highs and lows, not only when it's convenient or when things are going well. True connections are built on a foundation of mutual respect, love, and support. In a healthy relationship, both individuals show up for one another. Not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. You don't have to chase after people who only value you when it serves them. Your presence in their lives should be a privilege, not a convenience. If they fail to recognize that, it's time to create some space between you and them. But what does it look like to truly value yourself? It starts with setting clear boundaries and recognizing that your time, energy, and love are not limitless resources. Just because you have the capacity to help someone doesn't mean you should constantly sacrifice your own well-being for the sake of others. It means learning to say no when necessary and prioritizing your needs just as much as you would prioritize the needs of those you care about. It means understanding that it's okay to step away from relationships that aren't serving you, even if they once did. And it means trusting that when you make room for people who genuinely care, you'll be surrounded by individuals who see you for who you are, not just for what you can do for them. As you continue to grow and evolve, it's essential to remember that your worth does not decrease because of the actions of others. There will always be people who come and go, some who bring joy and some who bring pain. But in the end, it's not about how many people acknowledge your worth, it's about how you acknowledge it yourself. The more you stand firm in knowing that you are valuable, regardless of your circumstances, the less likely you'll be to tolerate people who only reach out when they need something. The key is to shift your mindset. Instead of focusing on how others treat you, focus on how you treat yourself. Do you give yourself the love, respect, and care that you give to others? Do you recognize your own worth in every situation, whether you're succeeding or struggling? When you begin to treat yourself with the same level of dignity and regard that you would give to someone you love, You naturally set the standard for how others should treat you. And remember, you are not here to be a convenience for anyone. You are here to live a life that is true to your purpose, surrounded by people who genuinely value and support you, not just when it's easy, but all the time. When you make the decision to protect your energy, honor your boundaries, and prioritize your self-worth, you'll begin to attract the right people into your life. The ones who show up for you, not just when they need something, but always. Your worth is constant, unwavering, and powerful. Stand firm in that truth and never let anyone make you believe otherwise. True relationships are built on a foundation of mutual respect, trust, and understanding. These three pillars are essential for forming lasting, meaningful connections with others, whether in friendships, romantic partnerships, or even professional relationships. Respect is the starting point for any healthy relationship. It's the recognition of another person's inherent value as a human being, acknowledging that they deserve the same consideration and dignity that you would expect for yourself. Trust is equally crucial because without trust, no relationship can truly thrive. Without trust, you are left with doubt, suspicion, and uncertainty, making it difficult to build a connection that is deep or genuine, and understanding ties everything together. Being able to empathize with others, recognizing their experiences, and showing compassion even when things aren't easy. When these elements are present, relationships have the potential to grow and evolve in meaningful ways. They create a safe space where both people can be vulnerable and open, knowing that they will be met with care and respect. Unfortunately, not all relationships are built on these values, and when they aren't, the connection can feel shallow, transactional, and ultimately unfulfilling. One of the most common signs of a relationship lacking in mutual respect, trust, and understanding is when one person only reaches out when they need something and ignores the other person when they don't. This behavior is not just inconsiderate, it can also be emotionally draining and disheartening for the person on the receiving end. It sends the message that the relationship is one-sided, that the other person is only valued when they are useful or convenient. This undermines the very foundation of what a genuine relationship is supposed to be. A partnership based on mutual care and support. The truth is, relationships are about give and take. They are not meant to be about one person constantly providing while the other person takes without reciprocation. For a relationship to be fulfilling, both people need to invest in one another. This means showing up for each other in both the good times and the bad. It means being there when your friend is celebrating an achievement, but also when they're going through a difficult time. It's about offering a listening ear when someone needs to talk, or providing support when they're facing challenges. In a balanced relationship, both parties are present in each other's lives in a meaningful way, not just when it suits them. This is what builds the trust and respect that form the foundation of any lasting connection. When someone only contacts you when they need something, it can leave you feeling taken for granted. You might start to wonder if they even care about you as a person, or if they only see you as a means to an end. Over time, this type of behavior can erode the trust in the relationship. You may start to question their motives, or feel that they are only reaching out when it's convenient for them, which can create a sense of imbalance and resentment. This imbalance can ultimately damage the relationship and leave you feeling disrespected and unappreciated. Mutual respect means that both people are able to give and receive in equal measure. It doesn't mean that everything has to be perfectly balanced all the time, There may be periods where one person needs more support than the other, and that's okay. The key is that there's an understanding that support will flow in both directions over time. Trust, too, is built on this reciprocal nature. You trust that the person you are in a relationship with will be there for you when you need them, just as you would be there for them. Without this trust, it's difficult to feel secure in the relationship and to fully open up to the other person. Understanding is another critical component of any genuine connection. It's about being able to see things from the other person's perspective, even if you don't always agree with them. It's about recognizing that everyone has their own struggles and challenges, and being patient and compassionate when someone is going through a tough time. This kind of understanding doesn't require you to solve their problems for them, but rather to offer emotional support and empathy. It's about being present and available in a way that shows you care about their well-being, not just about what they can do for you. Unfortunately, in relationships where one person is only interested in what they can get, understanding becomes difficult. When you're only reaching out to someone when you need something, you're not showing interest in their needs or their feelings. You're not taking the time to understand what's going on in their life or to offer support when they're struggling. Instead, you're focused solely on your own needs, which undermines the foundation of respect and trust that is necessary for a strong, healthy connection. This dynamic can be incredibly hurtful, especially if the person on the receiving end is constantly giving without receiving anything in return. It can lead to feelings of resentment, loneliness, and frustration as the person feels that their efforts are not being valued or reciprocated. Over time, this can create a disconnect between the two people, and the relationship may begin to feel more like a burden than a meaningful connection. In order to build relationships that are based on mutual respect, trust, and understanding, both people must be willing to invest in each other's well-being. This requires emotional maturity, empathy, and a willingness to put the other person's needs on the same level as your own. It means showing up for them when it matters, not just when it's convenient or when you need something. It means being vulnerable and allowing the relationship to be a two-way street where both parties can lean on each other and offer support without keeping score or expecting something in return. If you find yourself in a relationship where the other person only reaches out when they need something from you, it's important to recognize that this is not an equal partnership. You deserve to be in relationships where your worth is valued consistently, not just when it benefits the other person. It's okay to set boundaries and to walk away from relationships that are one-sided. You have the right to expect respect, trust, and understanding in all your relationships. You deserve to be surrounded by people who are there for you, not just in moments of need, but at all times. People who offer their support, care, and attention freely without expecting anything in return. True relationships are about mutual respect and understanding. They are built on a foundation of trust, where both people are committed to supporting each other through thick and thin. If someone only reaches out when they need something, it's a sign that the relationship is not built on these fundamental principles. It's a relationship based on convenience, not care. You deserve better than that. So don't settle for relationships that lack respect, trust, and understanding. Build connections that are rooted in mutual care. And surround yourself with people who genuinely value you, not just when they need something, but all the time. Recognizing patterns in relationships is a crucial skill that allows you to protect your emotional well-being and avoid unhealthy dynamics. People are complex, and their actions can sometimes be difficult to understand. But recognizing patterns of behavior is essential for navigating both personal and professional relationships. One of the most damaging patterns that can develop in a relationship is when someone only reaches out to you when they need something, ignoring you when they have no immediate use for you. This behavior is a clear indication that the relationship may be one-sided and is rooted in convenience rather than mutual respect, care, and understanding. At first, it might be difficult to see these patterns. People are good at masking their intentions. And sometimes the requests they make are framed in a way that seems innocent or necessary. However, over time, you start to notice a recurring trend. The person reaches out only when they are in need, but when you need support, they are nowhere to be found. They might seem distant or unavailable, making excuses when you try to connect with them or seek help. This inconsistency in their behavior is the first clue that something is off. In a balanced relationship, both parties are present for each other, not just when it's convenient, but consistently through both highs and lows. When this pattern of inconsistency begins to take shape, it's a red flag that should not be ignored. One of the first steps to recognizing this pattern is to reflect on past interactions with that person. Ask yourself, when was the last time this person reached out to you just to check in, with no ulterior motive? When was the last time they supported you, not because they had to, but because they genuinely cared? It's easy to get caught up in the cycle of giving without receiving, especially if you're someone who values helping others. But when you step back and really analyze these patterns, it becomes clearer that some people may only reach out when they have a need. This isn't true friendship or love. It's opportunistic behavior that takes advantage of your kindness and generosity. The key to recognizing these patterns is becoming aware of how frequently the relationship feels one-sided. Over time, the damage from this kind of behavior can accumulate. You may begin to feel drained, exhausted, and even resentful. At first, it might seem harmless. You help out when you can, and maybe they seem appreciative, but the next time they need something, the cycle repeats itself. This ongoing pattern can wear you down emotionally because it reinforces the feeling that you are only valued when you can offer something. You may even begin to question your own self-worth, thinking that perhaps the only reason people care about you is because of what you can provide, rather than who you truly are. This is an unhealthy mindset to adopt, and it can take a toll on your emotional and mental health. Recognizing these patterns also requires you to tune into your feelings. How do you feel when you interact with this person? Do you feel valued and appreciated? Or do you feel like you're simply there to meet their needs? Trust your instincts. If something feels off, it usually is. The constant feeling of being used is a sign that the relationship lacks the balance and mutual respect that are fundamental to any healthy connection. If you find yourself only being contacted during their moments of need, this is a clear indicator that the relationship is imbalanced, and it's time to reassess whether it's truly worth your time and energy. Once you've identified this pattern, it's important to take action. The first step is setting boundaries. This can be difficult, especially if you're someone who has always been available to others. You might feel guilty for setting limits, thinking that you should always be there for people. But boundaries are necessary for maintaining healthy relationships. Setting boundaries doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you care enough to protect your own emotional well-being. By setting clear boundaries, you send the message that you deserve respect, that your time and energy are valuable, and that you won't tolerate being used. Boundaries in these situations might include being less available when the person only reaches out during moments of need, or declining to offer help if you feel that the person hasn't shown you the same level of care or support. It's important to communicate these boundaries clearly and assertively without feeling the need to justify your actions. Remember, you are not obligated to give endlessly to someone who only takes from you. True relationships are reciprocal. They involve both giving and receiving. You deserve to be in a relationship where your contributions are appreciated and valued, not just when someone needs something from you. In some cases, it may become necessary to distance yourself from people who continually exhibit this pattern of behavior. While this can be a difficult decision, especially if the person is someone you care about deeply, it's important to prioritize your own well-being. If someone consistently ignores you when they don't need anything and only reaches out when they do, it's a sign that they may not truly value you as a person. In such cases, it's okay to let go and move on. Holding on to one-sided relationships can prevent you from fostering more meaningful, balanced connections with others. One of the most liberating realizations when recognizing these patterns is understanding that it's not your responsibility to fix other people or to make them change. Everyone has their own life and challenges, and while you can offer support and care, you cannot force someone to value you or to treat you with the respect you deserve. It's important to remember that your worth is not dependent on how much someone else is willing to give or offer. You are valuable simply because you exist, and you should never settle for relationships where your worth is determined only by what you can do for someone else. And in the process of recognizing and distancing yourself from these one-sided relationships, it's also essential to focus on cultivating relationships that are truly mutual. True friends, family, and loved ones are those who reach out to you not just when they need something, but because they genuinely care about you and want to be a part of your life. They make an effort to check in on you, offer support when needed, and celebrate your successes as much as they share in your struggles. These are the kinds of relationships that bring fulfillment and joy. When you recognize the patterns of behavior that are toxic or unbalanced, you free yourself up to nurture those relationships that are worth your time, energy, and love. Ultimately, recognizing these patterns is about learning to trust yourself and your instincts. If a relationship consistently leaves you feeling undervalued or used, it's important to honor those feelings and take action. Protect your emotional well-being by setting boundaries, distancing yourself from toxic people, and investing your energy in relationships that are built on mutual respect, care, and trust. This will allow you to create the kind of life and relationships you deserve. One where you are valued, not just for what you can do for others, but for who you are. Setting boundaries is one of the most important steps you can take to protect your emotional, mental, and physical well-being. Boundaries are not about shutting others out or being selfish. They are a form of self-care that ensures you can maintain healthy, balanced relationships while also prioritizing your own needs. In a world where people often expect others to be constantly available, always giving, and endlessly accommodating, establishing boundaries becomes not just important, but essential for preserving your sense of self and your peace of mind. Without boundaries, it's easy to feel overwhelmed, drained, and unappreciated, especially in relationships where others take advantage of your kindness or where you find yourself giving more than you are receiving. Boundaries help you define what is acceptable and what is not in your relationships with others. They allow you to communicate your needs clearly and assertively without feeling guilty or fearful of conflict. When someone repeatedly crosses your boundaries or expects you to be available only when it serves their needs, it's vital to assert those limits. Boundaries let others know what behavior you will tolerate and what you will not. And they create a space where you can continue to nurture healthy and balanced relationships. Setting boundaries is particularly important when dealing with people who seem to ignore you until they need something from you. At first, it might be difficult to identify when you're being taken advantage of, especially if you are a naturally giving person. You may feel a sense of obligation to always be available, to always say yes when someone asks for your help. But over time, this one-sided dynamic can leave you feeling resentful, drained, and unappreciated. People who only reach out when they need something may not be intentionally trying to harm you, but their behavior can certainly affect your emotional health. The key to maintaining your peace in such situations is recognizing this dynamic and setting firm boundaries to protect yourself. One of the first steps in setting boundaries is identifying where you need them. You need to ask yourself, where in my life am I giving too much? Where am I neglecting my own needs in favor of others? Often, people who only reach out when they need something are experts at taking up your time and energy without giving much back. They may ask for help, attention, or resources, and while you may be more than willing to give, it's essential to ask whether you are giving out of obligation or genuine desire to help. The key question to ask yourself here is, am I being asked for help because this person genuinely needs it? Or am I being asked because I'm seen as a convenient resource? Once you recognize areas in which your boundaries are being crossed, the next step is to decide how to set limits. This can be challenging for many people because it often involves saying no or limiting access to your time and energy. Saying no doesn't make you a bad person. It simply means you are choosing to prioritize your own well-being. For example, if someone consistently ignores you and only contacts you when they need something, you might need to start saying no to those requests. If they don't also make an effort to show up for you in return, it could mean you don't respond immediately, or you explain that you're unavailable or unable to assist. Setting boundaries doesn't mean being harsh or dismissive. It's about being clear and firm. You can express your needs in a way that is respectful to both yourself and the other person. For example, you can say, "I'm sorry, I'm not available to help with that right now, but I'd be happy to offer support at another time." Or, "I've noticed that we only seem to connect when you need something, and I value a more balanced relationship. Let's discuss ways we can both be there for each other." These statements set clear boundaries while still being kind and respectful. You are letting the other person know that you value yourself and that your time and energy are not for constant exploitation. Another critical aspect of setting boundaries is the ability to recognize when someone is trying to push back or test your limits. People who are used to you being constantly available or giving may initially react negatively when you begin to assert your boundaries. They might become defensive, angry, or even guilt trip you into doing what they want. This is where your commitment to your boundaries is tested. It's essential to remember that the other person's reaction to your boundaries is not a reflection of your worth or the validity of your decision. Their discomfort is simply a result of you no longer tolerating their behavior. It's important not to cave in to guilt or pressure. Instead, remain firm in your decision to honor your needs. Sometimes, setting boundaries can mean reevaluating the relationship entirely. If someone consistently ignores your boundaries or takes advantage of your willingness to help without reciprocating, it might be time to distance yourself from that person. It's a difficult decision to make, especially if you've invested a lot in the relationship. But maintaining healthy boundaries often requires you to walk away from people who don't respect them. Relationships should be reciprocal. And if someone only shows up when it's convenient for them but doesn't offer the same support in return, it's a sign that the relationship is imbalanced. You deserve to have people in your life who show up for you, not just when they need something, but consistently, with care and respect. The process of setting boundaries can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you've spent a long time being available to others without question. You may feel guilty, selfish, or even like you're being unfair. However, the truth is that self-care and setting boundaries are essential for your own well-being. Without boundaries, you risk losing yourself in the constant cycle of giving without receiving. Over time, this can lead to burnout, resentment, and emotional exhaustion. Setting boundaries is not a selfish act. It's an act of self-love. It allows you to continue giving to others without sacrificing your own needs or losing your sense of identity. Setting boundaries also empowers you to engage in relationships that are more fulfilling and balanced. When you are clear about your limits, you attract people who respect and value your time and energy. You create space for relationships that are rooted in mutual care and support, where both parties contribute equally and invest in one another's well-being. The relationships that remain after setting boundaries are often the ones that are most meaningful, as they are built on a foundation of respect, trust, and equality. As you move forward in your journey of setting boundaries, remember that it's okay to take time for yourself. Your needs matter, and it's essential to honor them. Saying no, stepping back, and creating space are not only necessary, but are acts of courage and self-respect. By setting boundaries, you take control of your emotional, mental, and physical health. You teach others how to treat you, and you create a life where you can thrive, surrounded by people who respect and support you, not just when they need something, but always. We all deserve to be in relationships where we feel valued, respected, and supported. Relationships, whether with friends, family, or partners, should be a two-way street where both people contribute, share, and care for one another. However, when someone consistently only reaches out when they need something from you and ignores you when they don't, it can create an emotional imbalance that leaves you feeling unappreciated, hurt, and taken for granted. It's important to understand that this type of relationship dynamic is not healthy and doesn't reflect the true essence of a meaningful connection. It's not about you being there solely for their convenience. It's about mutual respect, trust, and care for each other's well-being. A relationship that is one-sided, where one person only shows interest when they need something, undermines the very foundation of what a healthy relationship should be. It's easy to become blinded by the need to help or to keep the peace, especially if you're someone who has a deep sense of loyalty and a strong desire to be there for the people you care about. But it's essential to recognize that a one-sided relationship doesn't serve your emotional need. In these kinds of dynamics, you can often find yourself putting in all the effort, making sacrifices, and bending over backward to help someone who, when they don't need anything, makes no effort to engage with you or show appreciation. This creates an imbalance that will inevitably drain your energy and leave you feeling unfulfilled. The foundation of any strong relationship lies in mutual effort and investment. Both people should show interest in one another's lives, make an effort to communicate, and offer support in times of need. When these elements are missing, It's a sign that the relationship is not being nurtured in a balanced way. One person may take, but the other gives endlessly, creating an unhealthy dynamic where one person's needs are being met, but the others are ignored or brushed aside. This is not the type of relationship that fosters trust, growth, or emotional connection. In fact, it can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and loneliness. Recognizing when you are in a one-sided relationship is a critical step in reclaiming your emotional well-being. It's important to pay attention to patterns in the relationship. Are you always the one who reaches out, the one who makes the effort to maintain contact, or the one who is constantly called upon when the other person needs something? If so, you may be in a relationship where the balance is skewed in favor of the other person. This can happen in many different types of relationships, whether romantic, familial, or platonic. No matter the context, if the relationship feels as though it's only functional when the other person is getting something out of it, it's time to reassess what that relationship is really about. One of the most painful aspects of these kinds of relationships is the feeling of being used. You may give your time, energy, and emotional support freely, expecting that your efforts will be reciprocated when you need them, only to find that the other person isn't there for you when it's your turn to ask for help or support. Over time, this can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and even self-doubt. You might begin to question your worth, wondering why this person only seems to value you when they need something. It's easy to start internalizing the message that you are only as valuable as the help or resources you provide to others, which is not true. Being in relationships that feel like you're being used can chip away at your self-esteem. You may start to feel like you're only being seen as a resource or a tool to fulfill someone else's needs, and not for who you truly are. You may also begin to feel as though your needs, your time, and your emotions don't matter, because the other person only reaches out when it's convenient for them. This can lead to an emotional disconnect and can make you feel as though you are invisible, like your contributions don't truly count for anything. Over time, this can take a toll on your mental health, leaving you feeling empty and unappreciated. It's crucial to remember that relationships should be a source of emotional fulfillment, not a source of exhaustion and frustration. You deserve to be in relationships where you feel seen, heard, and appreciated. You deserve to have people in your life who will show up for you when you need them, just as you show up for them. These relationships are built on mutual respect and care, not on the convenience of one person benefiting at the expense of the other. When you're surrounded by people who genuinely care for you, you feel supported and uplifted, not drained or taken for granted. If you find yourself in a relationship where you are constantly the one giving and the other person is only there when they need something, it's important to establish boundaries. Setting boundaries isn't about being harsh or cutting people off. It's about taking care of yourself and ensuring that you're not being exploited. You have the right to protect your time, energy, and emotional resources. And setting boundaries is a healthy and necessary way to do so. This might mean saying no when you're asked to do something that doesn't feel right, or when you know the other person is only reaching out because they want something. It may also mean distancing yourself from relationships that are one-sided and no longer serve your emotional needs. It's important to remember that saying no to a person who only takes from you is not selfish, it's an act of self-respect and self-preservation. In some cases, people may not even realize they are behaving in a one-sided manner. They might not fully understand the impact of their actions on you. Or they might have become so accustomed to taking that they don't know how to give back. In these instances, it's important to have an open and honest conversation with the person involved. Let them know how their behavior is affecting you and explain that you need more balance in the relationship. It's possible that they are unaware of the emotional toll their actions are taking on you, and a candid discussion may help them realize the importance of making an effort in the relationship. However, it's also important to recognize that some people are unwilling to change, or they may simply be incapable of offering the level of support you need. If this is the case, it may be time to consider whether continuing the relationship is in your best interest. Ultimately, you have the power to decide who you allow into your life and how much emotional energy you invest in them. No one should have the right to take from you without giving anything in return. You deserve to be surrounded by people who value you, who show up for you, and who respect your time, effort, and emotions. The relationships that truly matter are the ones where both parties are willing to invest, to care for one another, and to show appreciation for each other's presence in their lives. If you find that a relationship is consistently one-sided, it's okay to step back and reevaluate whether it's worth your time and emotional energy. You are deserving of relationships that are balanced, supportive, and fulfilling, where your worth is recognized and celebrated. When we find ourselves constantly being the one to initiate contact, offer support, or provide help to someone who only reaches out when they need something, it often feels like we're stuck in an endless cycle of giving. Initially, it may feel natural to give without hesitation, especially when the people we care about need us. But over time, if the dynamic becomes one-sided, it can be emotionally draining and lead to a sense of frustration, resentment, and exhaustion. Being the one who is always there when others need something but never receiving the same level of care and effort in return can leave you questioning the authenticity of the relationship. You begin to wonder if the person values you for who you are or simply as a tool to get their needs met. This imbalance is not just unhealthy, it's unfair to you as the giver, and it creates a space where your emotional needs remain unmet. One of the hardest realizations to come to is understanding that some people may only be in your life when they need something, and otherwise they simply ignore your existence. This doesn't mean that these individuals don't care about you, but rather their actions suggest that they prioritize their own needs over the mutuality of the relationship. It can be incredibly painful when someone you consider a friend or loved one only makes an effort when it benefits them. The dynamic quickly becomes transactional, with little to no regard for emotional connection or reciprocity. In this kind of relationship, you might find yourself continuously giving, but never receiving in a way that truly nurtures or supports you emotionally. The emotional toll of this one-sided behavior can be difficult to bear. Over time, you may begin to feel neglected, undervalued, and even invisible. When you're constantly the one reaching out, trying to keep the connection alive, it can feel as if the other person doesn't care enough to make an effort. They may only call or message when they need something from you, whether it's emotional support, advice, or help with a task. Their lack of effort when they don't need something can make you feel unimportant, like you're only worthy of attention when you're able to be of service to them. This feeling of being used is emotionally exhausting and can erode your self-esteem. In these relationships, it's not unusual to experience feelings of anger and resentment. After all, when we are constantly giving without receiving in return, it can feel like our kindness is being taken for granted. You might start resenting the other person for not seeing or valuing the efforts you make, or for only reaching out when it's convenient for them. Over time, these feelings can accumulate and transform into bitterness. You may find yourself wondering why you're always the one to make sacrifices, to be there for someone when they need you, but never receiving the same level of support in return. This sense of imbalance can cause frustration to grow, leading you to question whether it's worth continuing the relationship at all. At the same time, there is often a sense of guilt associated with feeling frustrated or angry in these situations. Many of us are conditioned to believe that we should always help others, to be there for the people we care about, and to give without expecting anything in return. But there's a difference between being supportive and enabling a one-sided dynamic. It's important to recognize that it's okay to set limits and that your time, energy, and emotional resources are valuable. You should not have to sacrifice your well-being for the sake of someone who only reaches out when they need something. This is not a healthy or sustainable dynamic. And it's essential to acknowledge that it's perfectly okay to distance yourself from people who repeatedly disregard your emotional needs. One of the most empowering things you can do when faced with this situation is to set clear boundaries. Establishing boundaries isn't about being rude or cutting people off entirely. It's about protecting your own well-being. It's about recognizing that your time and energy are precious and they should be respected. Boundaries allow you to maintain your own sense of self while still engaging in relationships. You don't have to be available to someone every time they need something, especially if they haven't demonstrated the same level of care or effort in return. By setting boundaries, you are teaching others how to treat you, and you are prioritizing your own needs over the demands of those who take you for granted. Setting boundaries can be difficult, especially if you are someone who has always been there for others without hesitation. You may feel guilty for saying no or for pulling back from a relationship that has become one-sided. But it's important to remember that self-care is not selfish. Setting boundaries is about creating a healthy space where you can preserve your emotional energy and focus on relationships that are truly reciprocal. It's okay to decline requests for help or to express that you need support as well. When you start to assert your boundaries, you're sending a message that you deserve respect and that you will no longer tolerate being taken for granted. As you set these boundaries, you may experience pushback from the other person, especially if they are used to you always saying yes. They might react with confusion, frustration, or even guilt, trip you into going back to your old patterns of behavior. This is where it becomes important to stay firm in your decision. It may feel uncomfortable, but remember, it's not your responsibility to fulfill someone else's needs at the expense of your own emotional health. The other person may be used to you being a constant source of support, but that doesn't mean you owe them your time or energy without any reciprocity. When someone reacts negatively to your boundaries, it's a sign that they are more invested in using you than in maintaining a healthy, balanced relationship. At times, the reality is that you may need to let go of relationships where the dynamic is consistently one-sided. This can be an incredibly difficult decision to make, especially if you've known the person for a long time, or if they're someone you care about deeply. However, you must recognize that you are not obligated to stay in relationships that drain you or leave you feeling undervalued. And when someone consistently only reaches out when they need something and ignores you otherwise, it's a sign that the relationship is not serving your emotional needs. It's important to protect your own mental and emotional health. And sometimes that means distancing yourself from people who do not offer the same level of care and respect in return. Moving forward, the key is to prioritize your own emotional well-being Surround yourself with people who genuinely care about you, who make an effort to stay in touch, and who are there for you, not just when it's convenient, but consistently. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and care, where both parties invest in each other's happiness and well-being. When you recognize that you deserve to be in these kinds of relationships, you'll start to attract people who truly value you for who you are, and not just for what you can do for them. This shift will not only bring more balance and joy into your life, but it will also help you build stronger, more fulfilling connections with others. People who ignore you until they need something can be emotionally taxing, especially when you are always the one reaching out, offering help, or giving your time and energy. It can feel like your efforts go unnoticed, and over time you might start to question the sincerity of the relationship. Why is it that these individuals only show interest when they require something from you and otherwise seem to forget about you? This kind of behavior can be incredibly frustrating and hurtful, leading to feelings of rejection, resentment, and even self-doubt. It can feel as though your worth is determined only by your usefulness to others, not by the person you truly are. The emotional toll this takes can leave you feeling depleted, unappreciated, and disconnected from the people around you. At the core of this issue lies a lack of genuine reciprocity. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and effort, where both parties give and receive in equal measure. When one person is constantly the giver and the other is only present when they need something, the relationship becomes unbalanced and the emotional needs of the giver are neglected. This dynamic often goes unnoticed by the person who is benefiting from the one-sided relationship, as they may not recognize the impact their behavior has on you. They may see your willingness to help and be there for them as a given, without understanding the emotional cost it has on you. It's easy to fall into this pattern of giving without receiving, especially if you are a naturally caring and compassionate person. You may feel compelled to help others, even at the expense of your own well-being, and you might overlook the signs that the relationship is becoming unhealthy. One of the most damaging aspects of this dynamic is the feeling of being taken for granted. When you constantly put others' needs ahead of your own and they only reach out when it serves them, you start to feel as though your time, energy, and care are not valued. You may find yourself resenting the other person for not showing up when you need support, or for only reaching out when they require something from you. This creates an emotional imbalance that can lead to feelings of bitterness, frustration, and emotional exhaustion. You may even begin to question your own worth, wondering if the only reason people want to be around you is because of what you can do for them, not because they genuinely care about you as a person. This feeling of being used can be particularly painful when it comes from people you consider friends or loved ones. You expect these individuals to be there for you in times of need, just as you have been there for them. However, when the relationship feels transactional, with little effort put into maintaining a connection outside of their needs, it's natural to feel hurt and confused. The imbalance in the relationship can make you question the authenticity of the connection, leading to feelings of doubt and insecurity. You might start to wonder if these people truly value you, or if they are just taking advantage of your generosity and kindness. It's important to recognize that relationships should be based on mutual respect, trust, and care. You deserve to have people in your life who are willing to give as much as they take, and who are there for you, not just when they need something, but consistently. Healthy relationships are not one-sided. They involve give and take from both parties. When you're in a relationship where the other person only contacts you when they need something, it can be helpful to assess the relationship and consider whether it is worth continuing. Is this person offering you the same level of support and care that you're offering them? Are they making an effort to check in on you, to offer their time or resources when you need it? If the answer is no, it might be time to reconsider the dynamic. One of the most empowering things you can do in these situations is to set clear boundaries. Boundaries are essential for maintaining emotional health and protecting your energy. When you allow people to take from you without giving in return, it can leave you feeling drained, frustrated, and resentful. Setting boundaries helps you protect your time and energy, and it communicates to others that you are not available to be used or taken advantage of. Boundaries are not about being selfish or unkind. They are about taking care of yourself and ensuring that your needs are met as well. It's important to understand that it's okay to say no, and it's okay to prioritize your own well-being over the demands of others. Setting boundaries in relationships where you are constantly giving and the other person is only present when they need something can be challenging, especially if you've always been the one to help or support others. You might feel guilty for saying no or for pulling back from someone who has always relied on you. However, it's important to remember that self-care is not selfish. You have the right to protect your emotional health and to create space in your life for relationships that are more balanced and fulfilling. By setting boundaries, you are taking control of your own well-being and teaching others how to treat you. This may mean saying no to requests for help, limiting the time you spend with people who only reach out when they need something, or taking a step back from relationships that no longer serve you. Another key aspect of dealing with people who ignore you until they need something is recognizing the importance of self-worth. If you constantly feel undervalued or taken for granted, it can be easy to start questioning your own value. However, it's important to remember that your worth is not defined by what you can do for others. You are worthy of love, respect, and care simply because of who you are. When people only reach out to you when they need something, it's a reflection of their behavior, not your value. You deserve to be in relationships where your time, energy, and efforts are appreciated, and where your emotional needs are acknowledged and met. It's also important to understand that not everyone will change, and not everyone will be willing to put in the effort to create a more balanced relationship. Some people may continue to ignore you until they need something, and they may not recognize or care about the emotional toll this takes on you. In these cases, it may be necessary to distance yourself from these individuals and focus on building relationships with people who genuinely care about you and make an effort to show up for you. Surrounding yourself with people who value you for who you are, not just for what you can do for them, will help you cultivate healthier, more fulfilling relationships. Ultimately, the goal is to prioritize your own emotional health and well-being. You deserve relationships that are rooted in mutual respect, care, and support. People who only reach out when they need something may not be able to offer you the level of connection and reciprocity that you deserve. By setting boundaries, prioritizing your own needs, and distancing yourself from one-sided relationships, you can create space for healthier connections that nurture and support you. It may be difficult at first, but the result is a more balanced, fulfilling life where you are surrounded by people who truly value and appreciate you. When someone consistently ignores you until they need something, it can deeply affect your sense of self-worth and emotional well-being. It's easy to be there for people when they need you, especially if you care about them. You may feel a deep sense of loyalty, responsibility, or compassion that drives you to help, support, or offer your time without question. But when the same individuals repeatedly show little interest in you unless they need something, it can be disheartening and hurtful. It's a form of emotional neglect, where the relationship feels more transactional than genuine, leaving you feeling like you're only valued for what you can provide rather than for who you are as a person. In these kinds of situations, you may start to wonder if the relationship is worth maintaining. When someone only engages with you when they have a need, it feels like you're being used. You give and give, but when it's your turn to ask for support, they are nowhere to be found. The imbalance becomes obvious and painful. It's easy to start questioning the sincerity of these relationships, wondering whether the other person cares about you or only values what you could do for them. This kind of behavior can lead to feelings of frustration and resentment. You may begin to feel like your time and energy are being taken for granted, and you may wonder why the effort you put into the relationship isn't being reciprocated. The emotional toll of always being the one to give without receiving the same in return can be exhausting. Over time, this can lead to feelings of burnout, not just physically, but emotionally as well. You may start to feel invisible, as though your needs don't matter. It's common to feel unappreciated when you're always there for someone, but they are never there for you. The constant cycle of giving without receiving can eventually leave you feeling depleted and emotionally empty. You start to question whether these relationships are truly worth the investment and if they're fulfilling you in the way that you deserve. The truth is, you deserve relationships that are based on mutual care, where both parties show up for each other, not just when it's convenient or when there's something to be gained. In relationships where someone only reaches out when they need something, there's often a sense of imbalance that can take a toll on your emotional health. The person who only contacts you when they need something may not even realize the emotional impact of their actions. They may view you as someone who is always available to help, but they fail to recognize that their behavior is draining you. Over time, you may find that you are giving your time and energy to people who are not putting in the same effort in return. This can create a sense of inequality in the relationship, where you are left feeling undervalued and unimportant. It's natural to want to help the people you care about, but when that help is not reciprocated, it can leave you questioning whether the relationship is really based on a genuine connection. When you find yourself in this kind of dynamic, it's important to take a step back and assess the situation. Are you the only one making an effort to maintain the relationship? Are you the one who always initiates contact, offers help, or takes on the responsibility of making the connection work? If the answer is yes, it may be time to evaluate whether the relationship is truly fulfilling. Healthy relationships require effort from both sides. They should be built on mutual respect, trust, and a willingness to invest in one another's well-being. If someone only reaches out to you when they need something, it's a clear sign that they may not value the relationship as much as you do. In some cases, the person may not even be aware of how their behavior is affecting you. They may take your kindness for granted or simply expect that you will always be there for them. However, this lack of awareness doesn't make the situation any less painful. You are entitled to have your needs met in relationships, just as much as the other person. If someone is consistently neglecting your emotional needs, it's essential to communicate how their behavior is affecting you. Having an open and honest conversation can sometimes bring the issue to light and help the other person understand the impact of their actions. It's important to express that you need more balance and reciprocity in the relationship. While this conversation may be difficult, it can lead to positive change if the person is willing to listen and make an effort to improve the dynamic. However, it's also important to recognize that not everyone will change. Some people may not be capable of offering the level of support and effort that you need, and no amount of communication will change that. If this is the case, it's okay to let go of the relationship or distance yourself from that person. You don't owe anyone your time or emotional energy, especially if they are not showing you the same care and respect in return. It's important to prioritize your emotional well-being and recognize that you deserve to be surrounded by people who genuinely care about you and are willing to invest in the relationship. Setting boundaries is another crucial aspect of dealing with relationships where someone only reaches out when they need something. Boundaries allow you to protect your time, energy, and emotional resources. They help ensure that you are not being taken advantage of or drained by people who only come to you when they want something. Setting boundaries might mean saying no to requests for help, limiting the time you spend with certain individuals, or simply communicating that you need more balance in the relationship. Boundaries are not about being cruel or unkind. They are about taking care of yourself and ensuring that your emotional needs are being met. It can be difficult to set boundaries, especially if you have been conditioned to always help others and put their needs first. However, it's important to recognize that taking care of yourself is not selfish. You have the right to say no, and you have the right to prioritize your own emotional health. By setting boundaries, you are teaching others how to treat you, and you are showing yourself the respect and care that you deserve. If someone reacts negatively to your boundaries, it's a sign that they may not have your best interests at heart, and it may be necessary to reevaluate the relationship. In the end, you deserve relationships where you feel valued, appreciated, and supported. It's important to surround yourself with people who are willing to put in the same effort you put into the relationship and who are there for you, not just when it's convenient or when they need something. By setting boundaries, communicating your needs, and distancing yourself from one-sided relationships, you can create space for more fulfilling connection. Healthy relationships are based on mutual care and respect. And when you prioritize your emotional health, you will attract people who genuinely value and appreciate you. It may take time to navigate these changes, but ultimately it will lead to a more balanced, supportive, and enriching life. When you find yourself in a situation where someone only reaches out when they need something, it can feel incredibly isolating. It's not uncommon to feel used, unappreciated, or even invisible in these types of relationships. You give, you help, and you support, often without hesitation, but when it's your turn to need something, they are nowhere to be found. Over time, this pattern can lead to a growing sense of frustration and disillusionment. The emotional toll of constantly giving without receiving can erode your sense of self-worth and leave you questioning the authenticity of the connection you share with that person. At its core, this dynamic reflects a fundamental imbalance where one person's needs consistently take precedence over the others. This kind of relationship may initially feel comfortable or even fulfilling, but when the give and take of mutual care is absent, it can quickly become emotionally draining. Now, one of the most painful aspects of this kind of relationship is the feeling of being taken for granted. You are there when they need you, but when the roles are reversed, the other person seems to vanish or show no interest in offering you the same level of support. It's easy to overlook the subtle signs of this behavior in the beginning, especially if you are someone who naturally gives of yourself without expecting anything in return. However, over time, you may start to notice a pattern. You are always the one to initiate contact, to make the effort to stay in touch, or to offer help. In contrast, the other person only appears when they are in need, often without any acknowledgement of the time or energy you've invested in the relationship. The emotional impact of this one-sided dynamic can be significant. When you continuously give without receiving, it can leave you feeling empty, drained, and unfulfilled. This can take a toll on your mental health, leading to feelings of sadness, frustration, or even resentment. You may begin to question your worth and wonder why you are always the one who is expected to show up without ever receiving the same effort in return. This lack of reciprocity can lead to a sense of emotional abandonment, where you feel like your emotional needs are being ignored or dismissed. The realization that the other person may only value you for what you can do for them, rather than who you are as an individual, can be deeply hurtful. It's also easy to slip into the mindset of thinking that perhaps it's your fault. Maybe you're too available, too eager to help, or too generous with your time and energy. You may begin to question whether you are doing something wrong, or if you're simply not worth the effort. These kinds of self-doubts can be exacerbated when the other person never seems to acknowledge the emotional labor you invest in the relationship. This can create a vicious cycle where you continue to give even though it's draining, because you believe it's your responsibility to always show up, regardless of how the other person behaves. However, it's important to recognize that relationships are meant to be reciprocal. A healthy relationship is one where both parties contribute and support each other, not just when it's convenient, but consistently. It's not just about being there when someone needs something. It's about showing up for each other in both good times and bad, and offering emotional support, care, and understanding. But you are in a relationship where you are constantly the giver, and the other person only reaches out when they need something. The relationship can become transactional. It stops being about mutual care and starts being about what one person can get from the other. This dynamic not only leads to feelings of resentment, but also creates an unhealthy pattern that can ultimately undermine the relationship itself. One of the most important things to recognize in these situations is that you are not obligated to continue giving to someone who doesn't show the same level of care or consideration. Setting boundaries is crucial for protecting your emotional well-being. Boundaries help to define what is acceptable in a relationship and what is not. When you allow others to take advantage of your kindness without any reciprocity, you are neglecting your own needs. By setting boundaries, you are sending a message that you deserve to be treated with respect and that your time and energy are valuable. This doesn't mean you have to cut ties with the person entirely, but it does mean that you have to prioritize your own needs and make it clear when you are no longer willing to give without receiving. Setting boundaries can be difficult, especially if you've been in a one-sided relationship for a long time. You may fear that the other person will be upset, or that they will take your boundaries as a personal rejection. However, it's important to understand that boundaries are not about rejecting the other person. They are about protecting yourself and ensuring that your needs are met. By setting clear boundaries, you are teaching others how to treat you and making it clear that you will no longer tolerate being used or taken for granted. This may mean saying no to requests for help, limiting the amount of time you spend with the person, or being more selective about when and how you offer support. It's also essential to recognize that not everyone will respond positively to your boundaries. Some people may be so accustomed to taking from you without giving in return that they may react with frustration or guilt. They may try to manipulate you into going back to the old dynamic, or they may accuse you of being selfish. However, it's important to stand firm in your decision to prioritize your own well-being. If someone is truly invested in a healthy relationship with you, they will respect your boundaries and understand that you need to take care of yourself as well. If they react negatively, it's a clear sign that they may not have your best interests at heart. Ultimately, the key to dealing with people who ignore you until they need something is to recognize your own worth and take control of your emotional well-being. You are worthy of relationships that are built on mutual respect, care, and effort. No one should ever make you feel as though your value is based solely on what you can do for them. You deserve to be surrounded by people who appreciate you for who you are, not just for what you can provide. While it can be difficult to distance yourself from relationships that are one-sided, it's important to remember that you have the power to choose the people you allow into your life. By setting boundaries, prioritizing your own needs, and focusing on relationships that are reciprocal and nurturing, you will create space for healthier, more fulfilling connections. In the end, relationships are about balance. When you give too much without receiving, you create an imbalance that can lead to emotional exhaustion, frustration, and resentment. By establishing boundaries and recognizing your own worth, you can ensure that your relationships are based on mutual care and respect. You deserve to be treated with kindness, consideration, and support just as much as you give to others. As you learn to prioritize your own emotional well-being, you will begin to attract relationships that nurture and fulfill you rather than drain you. The feeling of being used, especially when someone only reaches out when they need something, is a deeply painful and disheartening experience. It's the kind of feeling that can chip away at your self-esteem and make you question your place in relationships. For many people, relationships are a source of emotional support, connection, and mutual understanding. You expect to give and receive, to share in the highs and lows, and to be there for one another in times of need. But when this balance is disrupted and you find yourself consistently on the giving end, it can create a sense of imbalance that is both frustrating and emotionally draining. It often feels as though your worth is being measured not by who you are, but by what you can offer. In these situations, it's easy to feel like you're nothing more than a resource, rather than a valued person with your own needs and emotions. This behavior, when someone only reaches out when they need something, is often unconscious. People who do this may not be aware of the emotional toll their actions are taking on others. They may not recognize that their behavior is creating an imbalance in the relationship. This lack of awareness can make the situation even more difficult to navigate, as it's hard to address a problem when the other person doesn't even realize it exists. They might assume that you're happy to help, or they may take your willingness to assist for granted. However, over time, it becomes increasingly evident that the relationship is based on convenience rather than genuine care. You may feel that you are being valued only for what you can do for them, not for the person you are. It's important to remember that relationships should be reciprocal. They are not transactional, where one party always takes and the other always gives. Healthy relationships are built on mutual support, where both people are there for each other, not just when one has something to gain. If the dynamic shifts to one person consistently giving while the other only reaches out when they have a need, it creates an unhealthy imbalance. You may start to feel emotionally exhausted as though you are constantly pouring into someone without receiving anything in return. This can lead to feelings of resentment, frustration, and even loneliness, despite the presence of the other person in your life. The frustration that comes from this kind of imbalance is often compounded by the realization that you have been investing your time, energy, and emotional resources into a relationship that isn't providing the same level of care or effort. You may find yourself questioning why you continue to give, why you continue to be there for someone who is not reciprocating. The emotional toll can feel heavy, and you may begin to wonder whether the relationship is truly worth continuing. Are you investing in something that is nourishing, or are you simply pouring from an empty cup? Over time, this constant imbalance can leave you feeling drained, unappreciated, and emotionally vulnerable. It's natural to want to help others, especially those you care about. You want to be a source of support, love, and encouragement. However, when your generosity and care are not returned, it can create feelings of worthlessness. You may begin to internalize the idea that you are not deserving of the same level of care and attention that you offer. You might feel as though your needs are secondary, as though the other person's demands are always more important than your own. This mindset can slowly erode your sense of self-worth, making you question your value in the relationship. One of the key aspects of dealing with people who ignore you until they need something is recognizing that your feelings are valid. If you feel used, it's because the dynamic in the relationship has become unhealthy. Your emotions are a reflection of the imbalance that exists, and it's important to acknowledge them instead of brushing them aside. Your needs matter, and it's okay to expect reciprocity in relationships. You do not have to be available for others only when it suits them. You have the right to demand respect and to set boundaries that protect your emotional well-being. Setting boundaries is a powerful tool for protecting your energy. When you allow others to take from you without giving in return, it can lead to burnout. Boundaries help you define what is acceptable and what is not in your relationships. They allow you to protect your time and energy while ensuring that you are not being taken advantage of. It's important to understand that setting boundaries does not make you selfish. In fact, it is an act of self-respect and self-care. You have the right to say no to requests that are too much for you. And you have the right to limit the time and energy you spend on relationships that are one-sided. In relationships where someone only contacts you when they need something, setting boundaries may feel uncomfortable at first. You may worry about how the other person will react or whether they will understand why you are pulling back. However, it's important to remember that your well-being should come first. If someone values you, they will respect your boundaries and understand that you are not always available to meet their needs. If they do not respect your boundaries, it is a clear indication that they may not have your best interests at heart, and it may be time to reassess the relationship. Boundaries are not about pushing people away. They are about creating space for healthier relationships. When you set clear limits with others, you are teaching them how to treat you and ensuring that your needs are being met. It's important to communicate your boundaries clearly and assertively, but also with kindness and compassion. You do not have to be harsh or confrontational, but you do need to be firm in your commitment to protecting your emotional well-being. At times, people who only reach out when they need something may not realize the impact of their behavior. They may not recognize the emotional toll it is taking on you. If this is the case, it can be helpful to have an open and honest conversation with them about how you are feeling. Let them know that you value the relationship, but that the current dynamic is creating an emotional imbalance. Express your need for more reciprocity and understanding. This conversation can be an opportunity for growth and can lead to a more balanced, supportive relationship. However, it's important to recognize that not everyone will respond positively to this conversation. Some people may not be willing to make the changes necessary to create a healthier relationship. If you find that the other person is unwilling or unable to change, it may be necessary to distance yourself. This does not mean that you have to cut ties completely, but it does mean that you need to protect yourself from further emotional exhaustion. You deserve relationships that are based on mutual respect, care, and effort. If someone is only present when they need something, it is unlikely that they will be able to provide the kind of support and care you need in return. Ultimately, relationships should be about balance. You should not feel as though you are constantly giving without receiving. You deserve relationships where you feel valued, appreciated, and supported. By setting boundaries, communicating your needs, and distancing yourself from one-sided relationships, you create space for healthier, more fulfilling connections. It may take time to navigate these changes, but in the end, prioritizing your emotional health will lead to a more balanced and enriching life.